what causes a premium on the flour is the fact that you buy the best wheat in the world, so you pay more than other millers.
That was Fred Mortati of Orland Foods. And it's your boy, Idrif, and you're listening to the What's Good Dough podcast. Whether it's pizza, business, or life, my guests and I are always talking about ways we can level up. Speaking of things going up, I don't know if you've noticed recently, but flour is going up. Whether it's the war, whether it's inflation, whether it's supply chain issues, we notice, us pizza makers, we're paying more for flour at the end of the day. So what should we do about it? Well, you got to listen to the entire episode to find out. This is an amazing episode, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And remember to always ask, what's good, dough? Okay, I am joined today by an amazing guest. Goes by the name of Fred Mortati. Maybe you've heard of him. He is the president of Orland Foods. He brings Chow tomatoes, Caputo Flour to America. Fred Mortati, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you on to talk flour specifically, but before we get there, there's one question that I always love to ask. There's no right or wrong answer. What's good dough?
To me, good dough, I would say great dough, is Neapolitan pizza dough. It's just my favorite. And it's my favorite because it, to me, is the softest, silkiest expression of dough that I have seen in the pizza world. When we used to do some pizza events just to introduce people to it, the easiest way we found to do that was actually to put dough on a plate and start handing it around. So even if people came to an exposition or something we were doing, we actually always said, don't try the pizza yet. We actually brought out the dough, put it on the plate and said, touch it and play with it and feel how soft and silk. It's like silk. And so to me, that's good dough.
I like that. And that Neapolitan pizza, soft and silky, it's often associated with Caputo flour, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, they're the granddaddy, in Naples market. So they kind of are defining a genre there.
Really? So, I mean, are they the OG, as you would say? Like, no one else was there anyone else before them?
No, because their mill there is since 1924. So if you really think about how pizza developed in Naples, they were really there from the beginning. And until, if I had to be really honest, I don't think it was until around 2000, just over 20 years ago, that Neapolitan pizza, that diet, only started leaving there and really starting to express itself in other areas. And it wasn't until 10 years ago that I think there was that real explosion, probably 2005 on, where it really took off. I'm not just talking about America. I mean, in a lot of other countries as well.
Right.
But before 2000, there wasn't a very big introduction. So, they were pretty well unknown. The industry in Naples was pretty well unknown, but they were and have been always the primary mill feeding that whole market there.
I think before we get too deep and into the weeds, I think it would be helpful for people to get to know a little bit of your backstory. You seem to know from firsthand experience about, moving Caputo flour into America and outside and around. How do you know all that information?
Yeah, so I've been working in food imports since the very late, since I got out of college in 1988. So in the early 90s, starting to bring a lot of tomatoes from the south of Italy, from the Naples area to America. Had met a guy that became really my mentor and great friend. That's the founder of Chow Tomatoes. And so just getting involved with importing of foodstuffs from that area to the U.S., when I started receiving some questions about how about a 00 flour, and it became a specific question from a friend of mine in the United States who was a food distributor, mentioning by name Caputo. I reached out to my buddy in Italy, Chow Tomatoes, and I said, open the phone book and find me this Caputo flour mill. That's how the whole thing started.
And so you started bringing flour over in addition to tomatoes, and Orlando Foods became even bigger and bigger, right? With more products, catering
Yeah,
to.
we started working more from, where we used to do a lot with just tomatoes and like hard cheeses from Italy and a little bit of olive oil. We really we expanded the tomato business quite a bit because the US market, just with introducing the flavors of Italy, started developing more. And also bringing in flour was an item that was very different than what we have in the US. So um, it was hard to introduce because it was such a different animal. But once people tried it and saw the performance was quite different, whether you like it or not, if there's a certain kind of performance you're looking for that you couldn't achieve with domestic products, then it became widely accepted, and that business really took off the more people studied about what are the intricacies of pizza, and then in the homeland, really in Naples where it's born.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you able to talk about that performance a little bit and kind of just the interworkings of the flour?
Yeah, totally. I've over 20 years. Uh, so I will tell you, and I tell my team all the time. We brought most of our team there by now to see the mill and really learn through all the products we import: buffalo mozzarella, tomatoes, oil, flour, of course. We keep a small collection of goods, and we just do a lot of work specifically identifying what's the best guy in each one of these industries, and Orlando Foods to be the gateway to just helping educate in the United States people on the benefits of made in Italy. We call ourselves the ambassadors of the Italian flavors.
I like that.
Um, and I think there's something to it because in Italy in general, their approach to food is very different than I would say almost anywhere else in the world. And it's such a big part of their culture. It's very hard to find an American or anyone else who's not from Italy, who does travel there, that they all come back and tell you, "Oh my God, the food was incredible."
Right.
Anyone you talk to goes to Italy, comes home, says, "Oh my God, the food was incredible."
Guilty.
So we're thrilled and proud to represent that and bring the best of what they do here to the U.S. because it is different. And I noticed the flour is different. There's a couple of things. Their milling technique is different. We don't mill the same way in the U.S. And in the United States, we are a huge producer. I think we're the second largest producer in the world of wheat. So we're the second largest producer of flour in the world. And that's a really big deal. However, we are a volume society. We have a system built on efficiency. We can probably more efficiently grind flour, achieve a better yield, have better economies of scale. But it doesn't mean that we actually will do it at a better qualitative level than everyone else because we don't necessarily do that. I'm not going to disparage American mills. I mean, I'm born and raised in America, but I don't believe that our milling technique is the same. I know it's not. Um, in
Would you
Naples,
say that's the case for smaller scaled producers like Central Milling or some of
yeah.
the
So
other?
I can only talk to you in general terms because I can't be specific because I'm not intricately familiar with their process.
Hmm.
So I would tell you, if I could try to put this in really simple terms, when you look at the average mill that have their grinding machines and the kernels pass through the grinders and it crushes the kernel and it takes out and it allows the flour to come out, and then that gets sifted and it goes through a few passes of grinding to grind the kernel into a white fine powder that's flour, and you sift out the bran and the germ. That process of grinding and sifting in the average mill is only a few different passages. It will pass through the machine a few times. And we could say 3, 4, 5, 8. And I can tell you in Italy, they tend to do that grinding and passaging of goods, of the kernels, more than we do almost anywhere else in the world. They'll pass it through more times. And they will do it a little slower because it protects the inherent qualities. I don't want to damage the protein in the wheat, and I don't want to damage the starch. and I want to have more consistent granulation. Caputo goes another step farther, and they pass it through their grinding. Almost every flour they make goes through 25 passages. So we say they have a mill that's really, really, really long. Think about it in those terms. Short, meaning a lot of grinding really hard in a short period of time, versus slower over a long period of time, over a lot of passing. So not great for yield, because in 1 hour, it takes you longer to grind a pound of flour than it does in another style mill. But it's really good for quality because you don't damage the product. You treat it a little more gently, and you do a little bit of you have a little more care, let's say, inside your process. But that's something that they insist on. That's fundamental to their ethos as a company. That's how they differentiate themselves. Every company has a defining, characteristic, let's say, and they don't split hairs. This is the way they're going to do it.
Okay, so it's refined, but with time. And one of the things that a lot of pizza makers say is that good things take time. And so it kind of makes sense that people will naturally, want to use a flour that takes that time, that follows that sort of process. Let me first start and say that my first 50-pound bag of flour was Caputo Americana. I bought it at my local Italian grocery store, specialty store, and I loved it. I used it. I think it came at the recommendation of, a lot of people online who were saying Caputo Pizzeria is probably not going to be good for the home oven, but try the Americana. Would you agree that sounds pretty spot on?
I think that's really smart. I think that it's an easier way to get to a result for a home oven. I can tell you that the regular pizza flour works, but you have to doctor it once you go into a low heat, longer cook environment. So when I say doctor it, I mean usually add some coloring. So you would put sugar to get some more color out of it, and you might even put some oil to protect the longer cook time and the moisture. But Americana was an item we developed specifically to be able to approach our quality, our flavor profile, our mouthfeel, but something that works inside a lower temp, longer cook environment, like an electric or a gas oven, something at 500 degrees as an example, or 450.
Perfect.
We didn't have that before.
Like when you said what good dough was and you said Neapolitan, my favorite style of pizza was Sicilian. And I, took a class that John Arena was teaching. And so I learned his methods and I was using the Americana flour and it was just spot on. I even compared it to a different type of flour and I gave it to some people who had the Americana and they had, I think it was General Mills, and they preferred the Americana. It was that obvious. So not hating on the product at all.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate that. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work and research that goes into developing these kind of, let's call them single-use products, right? I mean, a flour for each application. It's not one flour for all the different applications, and they're different. It's the same wheat. It's often the same exact wheat, same blending of wheat in every bag, but the blend's a little bit different. For pizza flour, might have more Italian wheat and less, let's say North European wheat, which tends to be very strong. But for Americana, it might have more of the Northern European wheat and a little less of the Italian wheat. But you need all the components to get the flavor, because it's not only about strength, right? It's not only about having really high protein, high gluten flour. It's about balance. The life of the flour is about balance.
Right.
And pizza for sure.
I think just a quick example for people here is if you have too much high protein, it's going to take longer to ferment, and maybe that's not fitting of your timeline, or it won't stretch a certain way, or maybe it's too elastic. And so really doing the research and the homework to figure out what type of flour works best for the type of pizza that you want to make is super important. And what I'm hearing is that Caputo makes a specific type of flour for a specific I guess, type or regional style of pizza?
Yeah, for pizza, for pasta, for pastry, for bread. But when we do look at pizza, just within that category, you have these long cook times in lower heat ovens. That's one variable. You need to approach that. But then you could also have the opposite side of the spectrum with super high heat and really quick cook time, 60 seconds. That's another performance you need. That's another kind of flour. And then how about in between? Like think about in the United States, I think the fastest growing segment is, let's just call it artisan. Artisan pulls from both sides, pulls from the high heat, but it also pulls from longer fermentation and maybe a little bit slower cook time, not as long as a traditional 10-minute pizza. So that whole thing of in between. So you know, we've designed flours that bring our desire to show flavor, consistency, mouthfeel, etc., in each application. So it takes time, though. You know, it's a lot of research to dial it in.
I bet.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking about sourcing flours earlier, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on the show was to address this statement that I've been hearing from the pizza community. And I want to say that, you know, I wanted to just get your opinion on it and get the cold hard facts from the source, or as close to the source as possible. I've heard that Caputo uses American wheat, ships it to Italy, processes it, and ships it back to America. And that's why Caputo is a little bit more expensive than what you would find everywhere else or anywhere else, especially compared to like the local suppliers. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that question up because the economics of every business are important it's important to really understand what's going on. So Caputo has we say that on average that we have 8 varieties of wheat in every bag of flour. Now those varieties of wheat don't mean 8 countries. It means 8 different varieties. So Italy could give 2 different varieties. And one could be very, very soft, low protein, and one could be a little higher, like mid protein. Kazakhstan, Germany, until now, Ukraine, France, they all are big wheat growers. Russia, of course, and just like Canada and America. So they're on the market, and they have for 100 years. Caputo's born in 1924. So for 98 years, they've been able to source and create inroads and relationship with farmers so that they can get the very best wheat grown anywhere in the world, because they are a premium brand. So they're never going to source something that's not exactly meeting their specification. So they currently do not have any wheat from the United States inside their blends. In the past, there could have been at times where there's some percentage of wheat that comes from the US or Canada that's inside the overall blend of product, if it meets the criteria and if it makes economical sense. Now, in today's shipping world, probably doesn't make economical sense for them to be buying wheat in the US and Canada, which tend to be much, much more limited in their specification. The US and Canada is a big producer of wheat, but we only have a few varieties. And the varieties we produce that we grow, and we grow huge volumes, tend to be very, very hard. Well, that very hard wheat is actually really not good for the purposes of Caputo, because you probably have heard people say, like, one thing about Caputo, that if there's any negative, it's that they consider it not as strong or high in gluten and resistance as you know, a lot of domestic mill products, because we don't have that kind of wheat. We source really high protein, high quality wheat, but we don't use it straight. We blend it with softer wheats that have other properties, because we need different kind of properties in the bag. The bag has to be a full circle, has to give us a lot of different things. In order to get a lot of different things, you have to use a lot of different wheat. Now, the US is not good for that. We don't have the availability of having 8, 10, 12 varieties. So we're not an importer of wheat from the United States and Canada right now, but it doesn't mean I would be lying if I said that never can take place, because that can take place. But the quantity would be minimal, and we're talking about small percentages in the overall makeup of a bag of flour on our side. And the expense is not in just what's the cost of the wheat. There's a worldwide market for wheat. So if the United States and Canada are going to sell wheat in Italy, they're going to be competing with Germany, Kazakhstan, Russia, Ukraine, and other Italian farmers. That means they'll sell at a market price. The really high quality wheat will cost $1, the lesser stuff will cost 70 cents, and the cheap stuff will be 50. But that's just a market price. That doesn't mean that that's what we want to use, even if the price is good. I don't know if that answers that question.
It does. I think maybe it would be helpful to break down what percentage of the wheat comes from, I guess, Europe, so that people can get a clearer understanding or picture.
Today, 100% of the wheat is European. It's 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That's
because of the current circumstances of the world.
Yeah, and in the past, there could have been times where it was 90-10, 90% Europe, 10% North America. But it was never more than that.
And 10% wouldn't cause a huge premium on the flour.
I guess what I was trying to say was, regardless of where the wheat comes from, that's not going to cause a premium on the flour. What causes a premium on the flour is the fact that you buy the best wheat in the world, so you pay more than other millers. We know for a fact we're going to pay more than other millers. You're going to buy the Ferrari of wheat, regardless of where it grows. You're going to buy only the Ferrari. And General Motors makes a lot more cars that are less expensive. But they don't work for us. We don't get that performance. We need the best performance. So that's number one. And buying the best quality wheat has a cost to it. And it costs a little more. It's not a lot more. But we also have, I told you, a slower process. So we have the same size mill as the same medium size, let's say, domestic mill, but we just will ship and produce fewer kilos in a day than they would at an equivalent domestic USA mill. And that's only because of the attention to going slowly and being careful. And again, better wheat, a little slower process to be a little more careful, to have a little more better average quality overall, and more than just having a better average quality. If you're paying more details to what you do and think about the pizza maker, you're probably more consistent. You know, we think about you when you mentioned like John Arena, some of these great pizza makers that you've gotten to know. The guys who develop really that are really dialed in, they develop process so that every pizza at least is as close to the next one as it can be. It can be the best it can be, also depending on the conditions surrounding them. Okay? Because not all pizza guys are the same. And so, you talk about artisan versus Domino's. I kind of look at this the same way. Artisan versus Domino's. We are honestly just performing at top of the pyramid, and we're going to be more consistent. Over time, we will 100% be more consistent. To me, that makes it more reliable also for the guy that's the artisan in the kitchen who has to make a product that has a value to his customers. They're not just eating it because they like pizza. They got a lot of the people who use our product. Those are the destination places. People are Caputo customers, that are Orlando customers. They're sought out by their customers. You know, like you go to eat pizza, the place you like to eat pizza. You don't go because it's cheap, and you don't go because it's easy.
That's so true. One of my favorite pizzerias, State of Mind Public House, Lars Smith, just started making the Romanas and uses Caputo Super Nuvola.
Yeah, he's awesome, and his wife too.
Yeah,
like that, great couple. And when you express like, I take my hat. I tell you, for me, the import side is easy. The restaurateur world is the most complicated world. I give so much credit to these artisans because because they're artists, right? And because they're really, I mean, their canvas and their brush is like what they can create with their hands, and just by buying some ingredients. And when you see, if they make it, because this is a hard business, but you see people pour their, blood, sweat, and tears, and if they stick to it and can be successful, like, it's awesome the way food quality in America has gone through the roof. And I think we have the best pizza in the world in America. To me, hands down.
Wow. That's a big statement.
I believe it. People here they try harder, they study more. Don't get me wrong, there's some great places. You can go to Tokyo and have killer pizza, and certainly, of course, in Italy. But in America, there's a value added now that you can get paid. People will compensate you. People will pay you for your product if it's really on another level. And that encourages people to get involved in the industry and want to do something that's hard, that takes a lot of R&D also. And so I think we're constantly upping the bar here. It's really cool to watch. The last few years have been really, not COVID aside, the last couple of years have been interesting, So I mean 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think, to maybe quote John Arena again, I think he said we're in the golden age of pizza. It's beautiful what's happening. And there are so many more people getting involved in pizza. So new ideas are coming out left and right, and new styles and new methods. And, we're seeing a focus on bread baking, or bread bakers coming into the fold and upping the techniques that we use. And I feel like it's only going to continue to grow as we share more information.
So, Idrif, you just said something's the most important, and I credit your generation with this, not mine. Okay, 100%. Share, being humble to know you don't know it all, and not pretending, because Google can correct you in a minute. Going out and being happy to share information. Your generation is what's changing it for all of us, because you guys have brought the concept of, just because your grandfather did it didn't make it right. We can study. We can get access to information that you didn't have before. We don't need the recipe that was written on the wall inside the pizzeria. We're going to study this. We're going to read books. We're going to go ask our colleagues, and we're going to even ask competitors and other pizza makers. And today, people share information in a way never existed. That's put a lot of velocity behind what we're talking about. It's awesome to watch.
One of my pet peeve answers when I ask why, when they respond, because that's how it was done. It irks me so much. And so seeing that we share that same kind of sentiment is good.
Did you ever hear the story? A quick sidebar, the turkey dinner. So a guy gets married and his wife cuts a turkey in half. And he says, "Why'd you do that?" And she says, "Well, because my grandmother always did it. It's the best way to make turkey. You cut it in half, put it in the oven, and then you do the other half after." So he meets the grandmother, and he said, "I have to ask you a question. Why do you cut the turkey in half? Does it make the best turkey?" And the grandmother said, "No." She goes, "I had a tiny little oven when I was growing up. We could only cook half at a time." If you don't ask the questions, don't just rely on what somebody else did. Go ask the questions. That's also why that's spreading the good word is so important in our industry.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome
Thank you
to
for
the
that
What's Good Dough
story.
podcast, and get ready to level up. But before we continue with the show, I want to introduce you to my two show sponsors, Uni Pizza Ovens and Cordo Olive Oil. Let's start with Uni. They are the #1 pizza oven company in the world, with the best community there is. Because of their ovens, I have made some of the most amazing pizzas. From round pies to squares, I'm able to get to temperatures of up to 900 degrees, allowing me to cook the pizzas of my dreams. If you're looking to grow your pizza business, buying an Uni makes sense. My past guest Ryan of Sanctuary Pizza has a mobile catering company powered by Uni. These powerful ovens are efficient, lightweight, and can be used almost anywhere. Whether you take pizza seriously like me or want to run a pizza operation like Ryan, Uni is the choice for you. Use the link in the show notes and join the Uni community. My second show sponsor is Cordo Olive Oil. At first, I didn't believe that olive oil mattered. It wasn't until I got educated and learned about the difference between commodity oil and Cordo's fresh squeezed olive oil that I ditched the supermarket stuff. Today, I only use Cordo olive oil when it comes to making my dough and even doing a post-bake drizzle. I have even made some amazing pesto with it. Oh my goodness. Cordo's high-quality olive oil does really elevate anything it touches. My buddy Chris, who runs a slice of New Jersey, just switched over to Cordo. Not only is he getting quality, but he ended up saving money by switching over too. If you're still unsure of the difference, pizza operators can sign up for a free olive oil tasting. Use the link in the show notes to learn more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my show sponsors and supporting this show.
I had a couple more questions about the flour because I think you market to an artisanal brand, right? I wouldn't say you're targeting fast food. And I think something that artisans want, they want an organic product, or at least that's kind of the trend that I'm seeing. Is Caputo organic?
No. And so I would also tell you that I don't agree that people want organic food. And I'll let me qualify that before all the haters come. Okay. I think what's really important, and especially now that I've got kids that are a bit older, that are label readers and that are responsible for their own diet now, and I see what's happened with them, and I see where we're going, which is a great direction of label reading, is clean, wholesome, all natural, non-additive ingredients. So if I can find tomatoes, cheese, and flour to make my pizza that is clean label, so flour, not organic, non-GMO, zero additives, 100% mechanical, just a mechanical grind and sift with really high quality wheat, where I retain the quality of the protein and the starch, and I do nothing else to it except blend it with other wheats to get the performance that you need as a pizza maker. That's a good product. Non-GMO, all natural, no additives. That's different than organic. Okay? And it doesn't mean it has to be organic. There are organic. And as Caputo, we do sell some organic because there is a small percentage of organic kernels of wheat that we buy for one item. But I have found that the food service market, I find organic works really good in retail, but I don't find that it works very good in the restaurant environment. And as a huge importer and seller of canned tomatoes, just whole peel tomato, all natural, no additives, put it in a can, put the juice on it, send it. I find that in the restaurant level, they're not as interested in getting the organic tomato as they are just the regular one. That's that's 90-something% of the market. So if you have good, clean ingredients, you are accomplishing feeding people healthier foods. Where I think the artisan pizza helps, and what I think the message, and if we as an industry could get together to figure this out, to me, there's an important message. Because you mentioned fast food. I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but you mentioned fast food. Fast food has a very negative connotation, right? Stigma. It's a cause of obesity in the U.S. Obesity in the U.S. is hampering our entire healthcare system. It's putting costs on all of us that we're all bearing to try to solve for problems that bad food is causing to our public. If we can get people instead, which is very affordable, go buy a good quality pizza. If the pizza maker uses high quality flour, no additives, all natural, and they do a long natural rise, where all of the simple carbs convert into complex carbs through gas production. And then you just put tomatoes on it, which have more nutrients than probably any multivitamin we can take. And use a very high quality mozzarella. You just fed the United States population with a healthy meal. We're not causing obesity. If we could figure out this messaging, this is you could feed your family with probably $20 a day. High quality, all natural, good for you. You could eat it every day. There's people who have that diet and they don't get fat.
Oh yeah, I like that. You mentioned non-GMO. Is Caputo all non-GMO at the moment?
All non-GMO.
Okay.
Yeah, and everything you import from Europe is non-GMO because they're not. Europe doesn't have a tolerance for GMO seeds, so there's nothing planted or grown there. And wheat in general, again, from what I've understood, is an item that's actually pretty easy to grow. You drop the seeds in the ground. It doesn't take a lot of TLC to get a wheat field growing. Tomatoes is very different. Our tomatoes are all non-GMO, but tomatoes is a very difficult crop to grow well. It takes a huge amount of sunshine. It takes a huge amount of water. It takes very limited temperature ranges. So like the conditions need to really line up well for you. And it's based on Mother Nature to get a good tomato crop. Wheat's more resilient. But everything is non-GMO.
Okay.
Clean label. And I think clean label is the direction of the future in America for sure.
Okay. Do the bags say non-GMO or?
We are adding that to the bag. We're adding some branding, some information about, in some cases, some of the things we're doing in both the tomato and the flour factory to be, more environmentally friendly. That could be the kind of packaging, could be solar, producing our own energy now in some cases, to help amplify and have more things at our own control, not have to worry about Russian natural gas. So, yeah.
Okay, good to know. And this is the second time or maybe the third time we brought up that country. So maybe we can pivot and use the last few minutes of this conversation to talk about just the effects that this war has on flour and how people should react or further prepare themselves moving forward.
Hey, Pizza Pal. I just want to say thank you for listening to the show so far, and thank you for making it all the way here. Before we get on to the end of the show, I want to remind you all to please leave a rating on the podcast. You could do it right now. Just go ahead and click 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify or Apple. It will greatly help the show. I appreciate you so much. And if you're looking to buy an uni or a second uni, the affiliate link helps the show so much. So please use that anytime you're considering a new oven. All right, enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, really important point. So I can tell you that the last 2 years have been the most challenging years of my career, and a lot of it is only due to things changing so quickly. COVID started exactly 2 years ago. We went to a big lull. Nobody wanted to import goods. Everything shut down, and consumers just stopped spending for a few months. Sometime around third quarter, September of 2020, after we had about 6 months of COVID, people realized that the government was giving some stimulus. They were starting to buy stuff again. Even if they weren't going out to eat, they were going and picking food up. And we saw the industry start to return, and we saw sales start going up and demand happening. 2021 was off to the races like I'd never seen before. And there was all the jokes, if you remember, in early 20 about what happened after 1918. Do you remember what ushered in? And everyone said the roaring 20s. Well, we entered the roaring 20s, right? And all the demand, this pent-up demand, put so much pressure on supply chain that the cost of getting not just flour, the cost of getting anything from anywhere skyrocketed because the demand was so high. So I would tell you that shipping costs have gone through the roof and they continue to escalate. They're not going down. They actually keep going up every month. It's costing more money to import goods. It costs more money to move goods that are made in America within America. So nowhere is immune. That will continue to get a little bit worse before it gets better. So we just need to be prepared that we are in the face of some rising prices. You're right. The war, everyone has read, Russia, Ukraine are big grain producers. That grain has kind of been taken off the market, so it puts some pressure on the available quantity from the rest of the world to feed and supply the need. And all of those prices have gone up a bit in terms of kernels. Wherever you buy wheat from costs more today. So we're seeing some continued elevation there. But here's the really good news. If you're in the pizza business, in times that are challenging financially, you do better than the other restaurants. You provide a huge amount of value. So if a bag of flour is $30, $40, or $50, and you're making an 18-inch pizza, then it means instead of costing you at $30, it might cost you 40 cents for a dough ball. And therefore, at, let's say 60, if I double it, now all of a sudden it costs me 80 cents for a dough ball. I can still make it. I don't think it's 50 cents a pizza is going to kill anybody. I think you pass that on. I think the consumer can pay $1. If I'm getting an 18-inch pizza for $20 and now I pay 21, I think that's not going to hinder our industry at all. And I do think that that prices will go up to the point that people probably have to start making some lifestyle choices. And quite honestly, Italian food business does well in recessive times because it provides a huge amount of value. And we go back to fast food. If I can buy high quality fast food that's good for my family, that's a good, solid nutritional basis for a meal at a $20 price point or a $25 price point for at least 2, if not 3 people, then I think that this is not something that anybody should be afraid of, whether you're a consumer or a pizza or a restaurant operator, because restaurant operators clearly are remiss sometimes to react as quickly and raise prices to offset this stuff. But there's some more challenges, but the cost of flour in your overall meal, it's not that much. So we could afford it and we'll get through. With prices going up, we will.
The interesting thing about this podcast is people who are listening right now are either they own a pizzeria or they're a home pizza maker. I think, I resonate with both groups of people. And so I'm trying to figure out, we've heard the side from the business operators. It's going to keep going up a little bit. You can raise your prices. It's fine. I guess for the consumer side, or the home pizza maker side, we like to go out and eat other people's pizza. Even business owners like to do that. Will prices stay this way now? I guess when you're buying a pizza, is this the new normal for us? Or will things go down? What are your predictions?
I think that we will see a leveling off, but I think it will be hard to see a real move down. And here's what I mean by that. Our costs, the general costs to deliver a product to a company or to a person's home have substantially changed and have gotten to a point that is unsustainable. So they will level off and they probably will go down. This cost of delivering goods and services will probably go down. I just don't think it will make a material difference where prices are today. I think we've seen a lot of inflation in a short amount of time, but let's think about for 10 to 15 years, we saw almost no inflation. It's just like we kind of got it all in one year. We used to get it over time. We were in a very low inflation environment. I think we just got it all at once. So I don't expect that we see a return to where we were. I think if anything, we see a tiny dip, but don't expect too much in the future. That's my opinion. I don't know.
We're just 2 guys on the internet right now talking.
Yeah, exactly. Remember, the internet, there's no lies. No fake news.
So you don't recommend people stocking up on flour today, or do you?
No, I don't. I don't think that makes one bit of difference. And flour is not material at the end of the day. We're talking about pennies in what you eat, right? So I just don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be hard to get, and I don't think it's going to be cost prohibitive. It's just not going to be as cheap as it used to be.
Yeah. I don't think, pizzeria owners are going to do a pre-mortem and think, what ruined our pizzeria? And it was the $10 more that they had to pay for flour.
No, it won't be that. And again, consumers, gas will go down. Not everything that hits your pocketbook is going to stay where it is. Your electric bill is going to go down. Like that'll all reset. And in general, things will reset a little bit. But I just don't think, in essence, I don't think food cost is going to go down. Certainly not for a long time. So you could, people could afford it.
Okay. Thank you for the hope. Let's see. I hope for the best.
Yeah. I'm optimistic always. And, pizza's a good place to be.
Agreed. I want to ask you my 2 questions before we wrap up here. What is one, and I just want to premise this, you have had an outstanding career, if I may say, from, an outsider looking in. So I feel like asking you this question is going to be good. What is one mistake in pizza, business, or life that people can avoid?
Oh my goodness. Okay, mistake in pizza business that having been around it a long time that I see. Just because you know how to make a really good pizza, could be anything, not just pizza. You might be great at making tiramisu and you want to open up a bakery. Just because you can make the product great doesn't mean you should open a restaurant or a bakery. Do the homework. Too many people are great at the art side and they're not good at the business side. Business side is really hard. It's really hard.
What did you learn? What did you do to learn the business? Because you've ran this successful business for quite some time.
I would tell you that experience is the one thing that you can't learn in school. So I felt that, getting a good education is really important because you understand some nuts and bolts, but unfortunately, time is the best teacher. It really is. I wish I knew what to do during a pandemic. I never had that experience till now.
Well, if we ever have another one.
Yeah.
Fred, you've been so gracious with your time, and I want to ask you this final question before we depart. What do you want to leave the audience with today?
I want to say that if you're in the industry or just passionate about the industry, make relationships in the industry. Stay connected. What is good for one of us is good for all of us. And I can tell you, we're only at the beginning.
I truly believe that too. Great advice.
Thank you so much. I really got to tell you, thank you so much. It's been really wonderful. And I love what you're doing. And we need people like you. And anything that all of us can do to support it, really important.
Thank you, Fred. I love what you're doing. And we definitely need people like you because without you, we'd be cut off from the good stuff over there in Italy.
Thanks, Adriff.
Fred, thank you so much for being on the show. Seriously, your knowledge and your expertise is so valuable to me and the listeners, and I appreciate you for educating us. I wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to see your pizza journey continue. To you, the listener, wow, come on. I'm sure you learned a lot today, as did I. Please make sure to follow Orlando Foods on Instagram. Link to their Instagram will be on the show notes. One quick favor that I need is for you to share this episode with someone who you think would benefit from listening. You can either share the link to the show or you can share it directly to Instagram and it'll post right to your story. There's a little share button somewhere around there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. I love you. Till next time. Peace.